Hello and welcome to the Futurist Letters show. We have for you a very special episode today. This is our last summer episode. We are seeing the sunset of a beautiful summer, the summer where we started our show. I feel myself getting Trumpian if I keep riffing in this direction, so I'm going to cut that short and just say that if you want to sponsor the show, here is where your sponsor message will go. This is a particularly literary episode, and we are very happy to have you here. I have, as a bit of a surprise treat, a very special co-host, Lillian Wang Solonic. Hi, Lillian.
Hey, Cairo. Happy to be on the greatest podcast, the best, beautiful podcast.
Beautiful, huge. The numbers are really good. At least they're going to be good after this. Very happy to have you here. I think that we're all very lucky. And today, Lillian and I are going to be talking to the one and only Henry Begler. Henry is an essayist and a literary critic. He writes on Substack. He writes the blog A Good Hard Stare. He's been going very reliably for, I believe, a couple of years now. And we are also very lucky to have Henry on the show. So I will turn it over to him and say, Henry, for those who don't know you, tell us a little about yourself and what you do.
Hello, I'm Henry. I live in Los Angeles, California. For the purposes of this conversation, I write on Substack essays about mostly like 20th century literary figures, some others as I just sort of wherever my impulse takes me. And it's actually just been a year. It's about to be a year, like next week, that I started doing it regularly. I had some false starts and random bad posts before, but it was September of last year that I was like, I'm going to take this really seriously and do it, regularly and try and make it a thing. So that's me.
I think
Actually,
I go
can
ahead.
I can I disagree with our guest immediately because
Yeah, please go ahead.
um, in preparation for this, I went back and looked at some of those early posts, and yeah, I guess I was a little surprised to see that you started the blog as um, a way to talk about art and paintings. And I did enjoy those early posts, although I think, they may lack some of the polish of later Begler work. But yeah,
Are
I
there
guess
periods
I'm
of Begler? I guess.
Yeah. So
yeah,
early in like 2022, 23, I was living in a very small apartment with a roommate and I was working from home. And I was also getting really into art criticism. Like I was reading a ton of like Peter Shadal and like Dave Hickey. And to occupy my time and to get out of the house, I would just like go to museums. And yeah, I started writing stuff like that. But I have no like formal art training or anything. I was just looking, describing what I was looking at. But yeah, eventually now I live in a much bigger apartment with my girlfriend, and I don't get out to art museums as much. And it's easy to sit here and read. It's harder to be up on the art scene. So yeah, it was an initial venture.
yeah. Are you yourself an artist, or was it
No,
really just a way
I have
of?
no formal training of any kind. It was just I was really into what I was reading. I was loving all the great 20th century art critics, and also there's this Substack that doesn't get updated very much by this British writer John Phipps. It's just called Paintings, and I was like very inspired by him. I took the title "A Good Hard Stare" as like just a phrase in one of his essays. He would
It's
write
very
about like
compelling. It is. I think the name of your blog, and also I would be remiss if I didn't mention, you are probably the only serious author on Substack, maybe in the world, with a GIF for a profile picture. You have this spinning pixelated ghost that I think is everybody's first impression of you. And I don't know if it actually I mean, I would almost would more expect like a, I don't know, like a John Singer Sargent or something as a picture, but I like the ghost. How did you come to choose this?
Oh, I think I've had that on my computer since I saved it from Tumblr in like 20, probably like 2014. Um, and it's lived on my desktop ever since. And I love to watch that little guy. So
Were you a Tumblr boy?
I was very, I got an aesthetic and political education in the heady days of Tumblr.
Is that how you met your girlfriend? I do know that happens sometimes.
No, no,
Got
no.
it.
My girlfriend and I have been together for a little over 2 years, which is well off.
Slightly
I
post
got off
Tumblr.
Tumblr
Yeah,
probably
yeah, yeah.
5 or 6 years.
And I also want to ask, 20th century literature, 20th century paintings. What is it about the 20th century?
That's a good question. I I think it's just I kind of wrote about this because I wrote about the Age of Innocence recently, and the Age of
Yeah, I read
Innocence
that.
is a novel that was written in 1920 and is looking back on the 1880s. Um, and I just think there does seem to suddenly be this shift um, in like human culture and society, at least in like Anglophone, like Western letters or whatever,
I loved
where
your hyperlink, your Virginia Woolf hyperlink. Of course, I immediately clicked that and got derailed.
oh yeah, yeah. um, uh, but yeah, I don't know. I just think like there comes this point in the 20th century where suddenly people are very recognizable. The characters in like The Great Gatsby, which I read in 8th grade, like before I was really a huge like into literature or anything.
Yeah.
They feel very contemporary, and I find them easier to write about. I think people who can write really well about like Henry James or George Eliot or whatever. Like I really admire that. But I find it a little more difficult to get into the headspace because I think I'm always like I don't know, and also so much of it is just like within our lifetimes. Like I wrote about Norman Mailer, and then my dad was like, "Oh, I spent a summer on I can't remember where it is, like Nantucket or Martha's Vineyard or one of those places." And like he was living there and he would like walk his dog like down my street and stuff. So, but it also feels so far away because the industry, like literature and its place in our culture has changed so drastically, even since, like 1990.
Yeah, the short 20th century, I guess you could call it for literature. That's very interesting. I also wonder if, you having East Coast American roots, if the preeminence of East Coast America in the 20th century uh lends some familiarity to 20th century work compared to, I think about my mother who's a 19th century literature scholar, and she's also this massive Anglophile, and the two like go hand in hand to some degree.
Cool. I didn't know that. That's amazing.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I always find that um like I love living in LA and I don't want to leave. I've lived like a lot of different places. I lived in New York for a little while. I lived in Seattle. I lived in Florida. I've basically lived in all four corners of the continental United States. Um, and like I'm like a California boy through and through. But reading about, you know, like people at the Algonquin or whatever, and people, people living in there walk up on like Riverside Drive and, having throwing drinks in each other's faces and that sort of thing. I find really appealing, and I think I find it much more glamorous when I'm like not it has nothing to do with me, you know.
Interesting. Okay. A bit of a literary wallflower in that regard.
Yeah, yeah, maybe. I mean, yeah, I don't know. I think
Don't want a drink thrown in your face
don't want to drink
or
thrown in my
start fist
face.
fighting with
Like
Hemingway.
reading about 20th century authors at like getting into fights at cocktail parties, but it's maybe one of those things that's better left as a fantasy.
Yeah. Maybe. I don't know. We'll see. There's certainly a lot of people on Substack trying to make it real for themselves, so maybe they'll succeed. Um,
True, true.
I think most likely to fist fight someone is definitely Ross Barkent. So we'll see what happens there.
Yeah, lots of
Lillian,
fiery,
I don't want to
fiery
keep you from
spirit.
what you wanted to get into. So
I guess yeah, just sort of talking about what the appeal of the 20th century is for you. So you've confessed to being obsessed with the golden age of magazines, and it's an era of big media personalities, and a lot of them are, or were Jewish. Um, so I guess, yeah, I wanted to ask, what is the uh, personal appeal of that world to you? And what is it like to be looking back on that from, the 21st century, and sort of, living vicariously through that? What does that mean to you?
Um, yeah, I think. Well, first, I want to say I did just say I love living in LA, but if anyone wants to give me like a large salary to go work at, Vanity Fair or whatever, don't let that turn you off.
and a time
Happy to do
machine.
that. Yeah. I think I read I reviewed the new book about Condé Nast a couple of months ago, um, by Michael Grinbaum, and he made a really good point, which is that you can kind of see the magazine era and the Hollywood studio systems as like dual. They're kind of operating in parallel to each other. They're these things that are founded by Jews, like sons of immigrants or grandsons or whatever, and they they could like they arise at the same time, and they're both like, we're going to take this waspy glamour and this fantasy and sell it back to you, sort of like do it better than
Yeah.
you can do it. And I thought that was like a really good point that I had never seen made before. Not that I have any, you know, like particular feelings about, wasp glamour or whatever, but
It
like,
makes me think about you tie it into studio system, which I know a lot more about than magazines. My favorite film, The Apartment, 1960,
but
uh,
yeah, great movie.
Jack Lemmon, high modernism, really lovely movie, romantic dramedy. But you've got the main character played by Jack Lemmon, who's Catholic. The character's religion is never specified, but he's presumably some WASP or non-Jewish agnostic generic American. And he's very much this like um insert for the director, Billy Wilder, and also for the audience. But the difference is like Billy Wilder's like very Jewish and CC Baxter, the character, is not. And so you have these scenes where he has his sort of like well-meaning Jewish immigrant neighbor. And he's like learning all these like Yiddishisms and like little Jewish quirks from his neighbor and seeing them from the outside and going, huh, that's funny. And it's like he's simultaneously the self-insert of the Jewish writer director, and yet the writer director has to like almost like astrally project into the Wasp consciousness to make
Yeah,
this film and like see himself from the outside. I thought it was interesting. So you're saying
yeah,
something kind of similar happened with magazines?
I think so. Yeah, I mean, I think also, I mean, my two favorite writers about my two favorite New Yorkery waspy writers are James Salter and J.D. Salinger,
Mm.
and they're like J.D. Salinger, I think, was Jewish on his dad's side, and James Salter's real name was like James Horowitz. And I just always am like, can you believe, like, when I started reading them, I just thought, oh, this is just Connecticut, like blue blood, Upper West Side literature, but no, it's all wherever you look, you find.
Well, I didn't realize J.D. Salinger was another patrilineal Jew.
I know
That's
we're
huge
many of
for
us.
us.
Like the
I
both
know
of you.
huge
Yeah.
asset to the team.
Yeah.
Have you
I
seen?
guess,
Have
do
you?
you
Sorry, go ahead.
do you feel like you are engaging in a Jewish tradition of literary criticism? Is that something that you think about?
Um, yeah, it's something, it exists in my mind. I think once all this Substack stuff I started doing well, and I was really feeling it, and I was like, oh my god, like this is great. I finally found something I can really devote my time to and really be thrilled about. Um, and then I realized that um, so both my dad's brothers are the Hollywood screenwriters, and my dad was like an advertising copywriter,
Hmm.
knows his way around words and stuff. And then my great I'm gonna get this wrong. Two levels of relation above, on my mom's side, which is the Catholic side, was a drama critic for Billboard in New York in like the 30s and 40s. So I just sort of realized I was like, oh, I was like totally unconsciously just like echoing all this family
How does
stuff. I
this
didn't even think
strike
about.
you? Does it feel like pressure? Do you get embarrassed or self-conscious? Do you feel proud? Like what is your relationship with this family tradition of writing?
I think I feel pretty. Um, I'm happy to be doing it. I think, I never really. I think I grew up. So I sort of stopped reading for a while, and then, like in college, as many people do, I studied history in undergrad.
What was your
I did a
focus?
lot, like medieval and Renaissance Europe,
Very cool, not 20th
Oh,
century.
not 20th
red
century at
flag.
all.
Really? Red flag?
Medievalists? Yeah. I mean,
Huh.
that's a hotbed of, white nationalism.
Oh well, I was
Really?
more into the Renaissance. I
Well,
loved like
Okay.
Substack is
Shakespeare.
even
Yeah,
more of a hotbed
Rena-
of white nationalism, so I don't know if we can talk.
Renaissance is fine. Renaissance is, very like queer
yeah. I
and
like the
I'm actually
cosmopolitan, Venice,
Okay.
yeah.
London, the bustling streets, the taverns.
Actually, I'm going to a Renaissance fair next weekend, which probably bears almost no resemblance to the actual Renaissance, but
No,
you know.
no, I think Renaissance in that sense is just a catch-all. I do know, speaking of the 19th century, my parents actually met at a so-called Dickens Fair, which was this Christmas event in SF
Oh,
that
at the
they do
Cow
where
Palace.
they're, huh?
At the Cow Palace.
You know more than me. All I know is that a bunch of nerds dress up like Victorian people and go dance.
I have
So,
never been, but I remember seeing it advertised in the physical newspaper, which my parents still got in,
well, it leads to people
too early.
meeting who then create children who start Substacks. So that's all I have to say.
That's really cool. What a sick origin
Yeah.
story.
You wanted to ask me, Henry, if I had seen something.
Oh yeah, I was gonna ask if you had seen a Sweet Smell of Success. Speaking of
I love that
magazines and
movie.
newspaper,
Yes.
yeah, that movie's incredible, and I was just
I love that movie. It flies. The pacing is just breathless. Whenever anyone tries to tell me that old movies are slow, I say no. 60s movies are slow. That doesn't mean all movies are slow. You go back to Sweet Smell of Success and it's not slow. Some of those noir movies, I mean, gosh, now I'm gonna blank on all of them, but Out of the Past, I mean, those movies just
totally.
fly. So, yeah, great
Yeah,
one,
yeah,
great flick. It felt I saw it, I think a year or two after I saw Uncut Gems, and I was like, this is just as good as Uncut Gems.
yeah,
Was what
totally.
I
I've
said.
said the same thing where it's like if you have someone who's kind of I don't know about watching
Uh-huh.
black and white movies, show them that, and you'll hook
Banger.
them for life.
Yeah, have you seen it, Lillian?
I have not.
Sweet Smell of Success. It's I don't know if you're a movie person. I know you're a Korean movie person, and you've put some Korean movies on my list, Lillian.
I'm sort of a movie person, but I'm afraid to say that around like real movie people. I don't have the sort of encyclopedic, knowledge, but I do have a subscription to the Criterion channel. So
It's I slimmed down to that and Amazon are the two I have. I hadn't seen Citizen Kane until like a year ago, so there are always going to be holes. I haven't seen like
Hmm.
Goodfellas. I don't think I've seen a
What?
lot of the canon. No, I haven't seen Goodfellas. I'm embarrassing myself here for no reason, but I'm just saying nobody has a truly encyclopedic movie now. Except maybe my friend Jeff. He's seen like 6,000 movies. Other
There
than
are
him,
movie guys who I think, you know, you get to a point where it's like almost possible to like run out of movies, and you're watching like
that's true.
the worst, like, that's when you start
They
getting
get
into
into the
like 70s
grindhouse
like
and they're
porn,
really,
and
yeah.
like, you start watching like just random crazy stuff.
Whenever I'm tempted to go on a big movie kick, I just think about my Letterboxd versus my Goodreads because I have like 2,000 movies on my Letterboxd and I probably have 100 books on my Goodreads. I'm like, man, Cairo, you got to read more books, so I start a book instead. Lillian, you are like an infamous book starter. Um, are
Yeah.
you a chronic do not finisher, or do you generally eventually get through them?
Well, I guess I never like to declare a book, DNF. Um, because yeah, I mean, like I started reading the Brothers Karamazov in like 2014, and then I finished it last year. So, never say never.
Henry, you are like, I don't know what you would consider success, but your essays are very popular on Substack. They get like, I'm looking at this right now, consistently over 100 likes, which is the equivalent of like 100,000 likes on most platforms, because there are only 4,000 people on literary Substack. Um, do you have a plan directionally for what's next for a good hard stare? You said a few times you're just doing what interests you. How far is that gonna go?
Um, yeah, I mean, I'm as surprised as you are, quite honestly. I think so I have some stuff in the works for Substack based journals, and then I have a
Like
couple things.
submissions. Okay, very cool.
Yeah, and then I have a couple things that um should be coming out in print like next year, not like household name print, but print nonetheless. I
Okay.
think I really mean to. I'm always like, I should pitch something, I should send an email, I should build
Yeah.
relationships with editors or whatever. And then I get the siren song of well, you could write this up tomorrow. Nobody's
Yeah,
gonna
me
mess
too.
with it. You could put it out, and instantly there are a lot of people who read you who like will comment on your shit
Yeah.
versus, if I pitch some literary magazine, I would love to collect the little thing. Like, I would love to collect the bylines. I would love to be able to tell my family, like, hey, I'm in Paris Review or whatever. But it is very alluring to instantly be able to publish and have people respond to it. But I would like
Well,
to. I mean, I love doing this. Like, I would like to do it as much as possible. And if someone wants to, commission and pay me for it, that would be
I mean, I'm gonna
super
say
cool.
right now, I would put money on you being, if considering you continue on your current trajectory and don't decide to become a hermit, I would guess that people like you are gonna be scooped up in the over the next 5 years to be staff. I mean, if I were an editor with money, I was putting together like the Avengers of Substack lit and like I'm gonna speaking of Citizen Kane, I'm gonna scoop all you up and put you in an office to write. Like I would definitely have Henry Begler on my list. So I wouldn't be surprised if
Yeah.
someone with actual money does that.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like the essays that you're putting out are, at least a match for anything that you would read in, Paris Review or like New York Times Magazine. Um, I think, uh, yeah, I don't know. I guess I'm curious to hear more about your drafting and editing process because I mean, you do an incredible job of putting out work that feels, very well edited and polished, but it retains like a lot of character and distinctive style. So I want to hear more about like, yeah, how do you approach an essay? Do you do you start with an idea and you're like, oh, I want to write about this set of memoirs and then you read those books and then you write the thing? Or is it just, you read some stuff that's sort of related? Just how does this work for you?
Well, number one, I think one really useful thing that Substack has done for me is that I'm always like, I have a list of books, miles and miles long that I really want to read and a lot of things I want to learn about. And it's so easy to just, get distracted by the next shiny object. And then, your thrift books order arrives and you're like, what? I don't even want this anymore. So, but I think, so it's been really good for getting me to like actually sit down and learn about subjects that I intend to learn about. I think for me, the drafting process, I always find that the whenever I feel like I've turned out something really good, it comes from a question that I need answered. Like there'll be some subject, and even if it's like, even if the question is like, what was the deal with this thing?
Mm.
Like having I think the reason that maybe people respond to it is that I think I'm good at it. Always feels like there's like a narrative. Like by the time you get to the end, I'm like, okay, I've realized something about this that I didn't know before. Almost like a short story or something in that sense.
Yeah. I
So
didn't I didn't want to say it, but yeah. There's something that occurred to me. I think what you like to put out pieces at 5 a.m. LA time. I've noticed this. So this has the benefit for me of if I wake up at 5 a.m. with the dawn and there's nothing going on, I usually get a Henry Begler notification, and then that's like my little treat. It's funny, you're not often is there an essay so good, not to gas you up too much, that you literally get the sort of pleasure from it that you get from like, eating a Madeleine or something like that, like it's delectable. But I read on one of these 5 a.m.s, I read your essay on Norman Rush's mating. Something that kept occurring to me is that one reason I think you are so compelling as a critic, as a literary um, analyst, is that you clearly are so moved by what you read. I mean, you're not just looking like a scientist. Like you are undergoing an emotional journey with the text. And I think of the Raymond Chandler, like the best way to get over a woman is to put her in a book. Like for you, is it almost like the best way to get over a book is to put her in an essay? Like, does writing the essay help you process your emotions about a novel?
yeah, yeah,
Hmm.
definitely. I think the few the times I've done something and it's been the things that I'm proudest of, I've just been like, I've read something and I've been like, I have to get this down, and in a lot of those it all flows out very quickly. Like a lot of the time, the really good ones, they just like get zapped directly.
Yeah. This sounds like adult ADHD with hyperfocus, but I'm not a psychiatrist.
Yeah, I don't think so. I'm pretty focused,
Pretty neurotypical. All right, excuse me. Anyway.
but I mean, you may be right. I don't know. Uh, but yeah, I think that's a good way of putting it. Like when it's stuff that's really, the first literary essay I wrote um, was about war music, which is the long poem by Christopher Logue. That's like a
Hmm.
modernist retelling of the Iliad. Lillian, have you read that?
I
I know
have
you're
not.
a classics head.
No, I haven't.
Just for the sake of the audience and myself, because I also want to know what is war music.
War music is this long poem by Christopher Logue, who was this British poet, and it's a retelling of the Iliad. It's like sort of he calls it an account of the Iliad. So it's not a translation. It's sort of similar to something like Anne Carson or something, where it's very, very free retelling. But what he does, it's an amazing, in terms of language, it's an incredibly fast and vigorous and really intense poem. There's a lot of modern stuff brought in. The way that the way I kind of pitch it is that obviously T.S. Eliot is this huge influence on 20th century poetry. But it always feels like Eliot's influence is very diffuse. Like, it's hard to find a lot of people writing poems that feel like The Wasteland or like Four Quartets in, in their structure and in their feeling. War music, I feel like, is the most sort of Eliotic, uh, like, it feels like very directly like it comes from him.
And when
But
was
there's
it
also,
written?
it was just he worked on it his whole life. I think he started in the 60s, and it went up till he died in like late 2000s, early 2010s. And
And
he put
he's
out the
not
last.
transposing the setting, to be clear, right? He's using the
No,
original
yeah,
setting. It's just
it's about.
the language.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, it's about, Troy and Achilles and Hector and all that.
The
It's
Iliad.
the same stuff,
Yeah.
but I mean, it's amazing. It is really so good. And just to get back to what we were talking about, like when I read that was the first literary essay I had written on Substack, and I read that and I was just like, I have to put these feelings I'm feeling into words because it's incredibly intense.
Yeah.
So I highly recommend War Music by Christopher Logue.
Cool. Cool. It's you really can't go wrong starting with a good hard stare. You can really just jump in anywhere, and I don't know, at least for me, I haven't been disappointed.
Yeah, I think something that's interesting for me is that you seem to pick books and to write about books that uh, almost exclusively I have not read or would really want to read or think to read. But you write about them in such a compelling way that I feel like I am taken on this journey through your reading. And yeah, I think the where I first started reading you with your gossip series, and I don't know, I would have never, I wouldn't think to like read, celebrity or media like tell-all memoirs, but through your, telling of the books, I felt like I have, I don't know, like vicariously extracted all the value that there is to be had from these books. So in a way, it like spoils the book for me because now I have no need to read it because Henry Begler has already read it, and I've read Henry Begler. So
Well, maybe Henry Begler in that sense is an extension of the consciousness of Lillian Wayne Solonic. So when he reads it, it's like the greater Lillian has read it. I don't know.
I think I take that from the London Review of Books. I'm really obsessed with the London Review of Books. I always used to say that I've read more of the LRB archives than anyone in the greater Los Angeles area. But then I found out that Colin Tobin, who's written tons of pieces for them, lives in Highland Park. So I'm not actually sure that's true. But maybe in the under 50s division. But I love them because I think they always do a good job of, am I going to read this book on this 1,200 page book on the Napoleonic Wars? Like, probably not if we're being realistic, but I love to read their 5,000 word summary of it. So I think that comes from reading a lot of LRB over the years.
yeah, or as we call it, the other LRB.
Yeah, the other
Yes,
LRB.
the other LRB, not the Lillian Review of Books. I want to ask you, Henry, if you'll indulge me, something not directly related to your essays, because I think we've established that we all love them, so that doesn't make very interesting conversation. You write on Substack, which is not only a distribution platform for writing, it is also a social media platform. It has something called Substack Notes. You use Substack Notes. It's kind of like Twitter. You post notes about things you like, and people can also comment and restack and engage with your work. Some of these people are insane or very politically charged or generally just sort of odd. even if they are interacting normally with you, you might go to their profile and see that they're very odd or unstable in other ways. What do you what are your like rules for yourself to interact on Substack notes in like a way that you won't regret?
I mean, maybe I'm lucky. I haven't run into any like complete psychopaths.
There's been no like cancel Begler movement.
Oh no.
Okay.
I respect people who are pugilistic and like to argue online. But I'm not one of those people. I don't like getting in fights.
Yeah, you only write about the dead. Well, I guess that's not true. You read some more recent books, but you write a lot about the dead.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I don't know. Obviously, if someone was being whack, I would respond. But yeah, I don't know. I feel like Substack has been a really good place for me because I just I nuked Twitter from my laptop this year. I just like have always hated it, but it was, for a long time it was the only place to look at certain goings on in the
Yeah.
literary and media worlds. I've actually been like, it's still on my phone for emergencies, and there's been a lot of news in the past 24 hours, so I haven't been very good at not looking at it.
I was the
But
opposite. Based on the news the past 24 hours, I actually deleted it for the first time in
yeah,
2
I mean, that's the
years.
move.
I just
It's
don't
it's a
like
terrible
people
move.
posting the snuff films, to be perfectly honest. I don't like it. It's not good for my cognition.
No, it's definitely
Snuff.
bad. It is as a Nyokic Apocryphon friend of the show said today, it is spiritually very bad for you to
Yeah.
watch people die, I think.
Um so you said that it used to be the hub for literary goings on. Do we have a new one or are we searching for that? Where is it now?
Yeah, I think just like everything is bifurcated and everything is split into their own. There's still all like the like modernist like Schadenfreude guys are still sticking it out on Twitter. Um, and I mean, there's like stuff on Blue Sky. I'm sure they're talking about like romantasy or whatever. It feels
I try,
very
yeah, romantasy. I try Blue
yeah
Sky so often, at least once a week. I just haven't found our tribe yet. So if I ever do find people like I find on Substack, I will start using it, but it's not that
yeah. I think the tweet format is like not a very good format, so I'm happy to just ignore it. Um,
fair.
but yeah, I don't know. It feels like everything is very diffuse. It definitely feels like I feel like the people on Substack who are in the constitute a little scene or whatever you want to call it are definitely the most aesthetically and sensibility aligned I've felt with people since, in my long years of going online.
Do you feel that, Lillian?
Yes. Yeah, I mean, other than maybe briefly in like the forum golden age, in the early mid aughts, this is definitely the most fun I've had on the internet, um, in the last 15 years.
I I almost see people agreeing with that with this sort of fear like nothing good can last. I had this post, it ended up getting picked up by the Substack algorithm and then people were calling it engagement bait and I had to just say, look, it had no likes when I wrote it. I was just writing this for my friends. But I think people liked it because it had this sort of self-aggrandizing or like group aggrandizing quality of like, hey, we're like the real, you know, I don't know. There's a little bit of an egoism present whenever you talk about like how cool everyone on Substack is, and then you include yourself uh, in that group. But I think the point is people are having fun. They're having a good time, and they're afraid like this is too good to last. There are no ads. There are so many cool people. Either there's going to be a flood of terrible users, or corporate's going to ruin it, or you know, like no one can trust it because it seems like it's functioning non-toxic.
Yeah, I mean, I think literary scenes are, by definition, they don't last. You get, 5 or 10 years at the very most,
Yeah.
and you kind of have to make the most of that time because then everyone scatters and something new happens. I think, I mean, it definitely feels like things are going well, but like one day, this won't be the shiny new thing anymore.
How do you feel about this neo-romanticism push that they're doing? Like Gazdan, Barkan, some of these people.
I mean, I'm not against it. I'm not like, I think, it definitely defines something. I don't know if it is, how equivalent it is to the Romantic movement of the 19th century, but I definitely appreciate attempts to capture that spirit. I mean, I love William Blake and I love
Yeah.
Turner and Wordsworth and all that. I think any, self-defined scene thing is always going to be a little grandiose and a little
Yeah.
ridiculous, but it's kind of part of the fun. Would I call myself like a card-carrying, paid-up neo-romantic or whatever? Like, probably not,
Uh-huh.
but I respect them. I have a sign coming out for Romanticon in a few
Oh,
months.
very cool. Okay. I respect what they are doing. I think I almost wish we didn't have to try and name these things because it's very hard to find a name that encapsulates the thing. I think people in this sort of like philosophical way feel like they need a name to make something real. Um, but maybe we'd all just be better off if we just called it Substack Lit. We just don't want to give that much weight to the corporate platform. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm definitely in
Um,
favor of not tying it too strongly to Substack because I mean I do kind of feel what people are saying. It's like the stuff could all go at any time.
yeah. I think a lot of people take solace in being able to export their readership. And
Yeah.
I have to shout out Substack for doing that. I don't know if I would have invested my time in Substack if there hadn't been that export readership feature. Shout out them for that. We'll see how long it lasts. Lillian, any other
Yeah,
notes on your?
yeah. So Henry, you've mentioned that you dabble in fiction writing, but you're not publishing any of it yet. Do you feel like your own fiction writing has any, I don't know, sort of aesthetic alignment with any movements that you see emerging, on Substack or elsewhere?
I mean I think I'm still figuring it out. Like I really have not written a lot of fiction in any capacity. I didn't really do it at school or anything. I think, you know, there are a ton of people on Substack who have been laboring, you know, alone and are on their like sixth like self-published novel or whatever. Like Cairo, I guess you're sort of
Yeah,
like
I
that.
guess I would be one of those.
I didn't even mean to be inadvertently describing you, but
Yeah, yeah,
and
no, it's okay.
I think that's like sick. I really admire the ability to do that. Like it's like very pure and very cool.
It's
For
very
me,
similar to how you describe um getting into your criticism, where it's just this compulsion that comes over you.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that's cool. I think like I have so much stuff that I want to say, and I think sometimes like I feel like I enjoy writing fiction, but I feel like sometimes I feel like it's just sort of I'm like, am I doing this because it's like the apex of like the written word, and like I could like nonfiction and essays and criticism and stuff are like one level below, you know?
Meaning that
Well,
that would be
that's
a bad reason to do it?
Yeah, it's like, am I just doing this because it seems like the thing you're like supposed to do?
that's a very 20th century attitude, I think. Right? We had all of these like partisan review guys who were like, you know, pushing out essays, but then like, struggling to get through one novel.
Yeah, I have this series I've been wanting to do where I review like Lionel Trilling's novel and like James Wood's novel and all these like great critics and see what they did of it. But I always have a hard time sort of getting up the motivation to read them. I do
What
think
do
it
you
would be
mean when you say that you wonder if fiction is above nonfiction, if anything, for me, I would wonder if it's the opposite.
Well, I mean, I just think, like the amount of essayists from the 19th century that we still read,
Oh, as far
we
as
still
staying
read like,
power?
yeah, or just in terms of like, we still read like Emerson, we
Yeah.
still read like, um, I don't know, like Hazlitt or whatever. I mean, very few people, but, I think it, there's definitely just there's a perception that the novel is the highest form, which I sort of agree with. Like, novels have moved me much more than, well, I wouldn't say that, but they've moved me in a different way. The sense of immersion that you can
Yeah.
experience with a novel is a very like I find like my when I think about my favorite novels and I think about the experience of reading them, like it's like psychedelic in intensity, you know. And there are very, very, very few uh nonfiction writers who give me that feeling. Although there are a
You,
few.
you're almost like a priest to the art of the novel in a way, and A Good Hard Stare is sort of this temple, this fairly trafficked temple that you keep up to date on offerings and liturgy. It's funny in that way. So it makes sense that what you dedicate yourself to would move you in that religious, pseudo-religious way. I wonder if you would have any advice to anyone listening who perhaps envies you when you describe your experience of reading a novel, wants to consume novels and be moved, and finds maybe that they don't have time or they don't have the attention. What would you say to them?
I would say so. I started, I kind of stopped reading literature very heavily through, late high school and like through college. And I didn't really pick it up again until I was like 22, 23, and I was working. And I really just started because I was living in New York and I had a subway commute. And I liked going to bookstores and like buying books, and then I would buy them and never read them, as I'm sure is a common ailment. Um, and, then you read in 20-minute chunks on the subway twice a day, and you can really start zipping through stuff. I guess I would say, just like ease into it. Don't be like, I'm going to read Gravity's Rainbow. I haven't read a novel in 50 years. Like, just, I mean, it's just one word after the other, anyone can do it. Anyone
Do you
can
have an
read like
opinion on
Ulysses.
audiobooks?
It doesn't mean they'll understand it, but that you can do it.
Yeah. Do you have an opinion about audiobooks?
I mean, they don't really work for me, but
Yeah.
I'm not against them. I'm not going to get into a big like fight about whether they count or don't count as literature.
What do you listen
A
to
really
when
funny thing
you
is,
go ahead?
just a funny thing is the only audiobook I've like ever managed to listen to completion is a biography of Hitler, which is like very
Is that
strange.
because you
The guy
didn't want a
reading it
big
was
book with Hitler on it in your possession? So you said,
literally,
I'm
yeah,
gonna go with the
literally.
audiobook?
Yeah, it was like during COVID, and I would like go to
Uh-huh.
the park and read, and I was like, I actually don't want to be reading this giant
Carrying
Hitler
Hitler around. Uh-huh.
book. But the
Yeah.
guy who read it was really, his voice was great. It was, yeah, I mean, it was very, I don't want to say calming because, it was a very messed up subject, but I don't know. You just, for some reason, that was
Any
the one I
any
stuck out
uh
36 hours of.
any takeaways on Hitler for an extempore good hard stare? Just right now summarizing that book.
Honestly, like the other reason I don't get along with audiobooks that well is I just like it just slides right off the brain. I could tell you
Ah,
that
okay, well,
I could tell you probably as much about Hitler as anybody could. Like,
who needs Hitler
give you
anyway?
the basics. Yeah, who needs him?
Yeah.
Yeah, I find that's the same for me. Just something about the way that I process information. It doesn't work with audiobooks. Um,
I don't know how often you guys go to readings, but I always find I go to a reading and I hear someone read their work. I went to a reading with a writer I really admire recently, and I heard her read something that I thought was great. I had read in essay form before and I thought was really great. And I just like I had such a hard time like focusing on it and like processing it, and I don't think I would have walked away being like, wow, that was a really great piece of writing, even though I had read it in essay form and been like, wow, this is awesome.
I think sometimes the reverse can be true too, where like if someone is a great,
Yeah.
performer, they can make something sound really good that that you then read it and it's like, oh, this is not that good. I
Yeah,
don't know.
definitely.
For me, maybe I'm thinking of it with an entertainment industry lens, but it really does require a good performer. I would say honestly, formally, a good reading piece is almost more like stand-up. You know,
Yeah,
like the best reading pieces I've seen have been funny, gregarious, have seemed partially off the cuff, have maybe even reacted to or engaged with like heckles or people shouting things out, and you feel like the audience and the reader are like performing together. And it's like at that point, you're not really consuming the essay or the short piece of writing. You're consuming this entirely new piece of art, right? That is the performance, and the essay is just one ingredient in that. Um, so I think I agree with you guys. Yeah.
yeah, I
That.
agree.
Yeah.
I've been like asked to do readings, and I'm always like, I don't think I would have to write something that is like very different from what I normally write, I think. And I'm not huge at getting in front of a crowd.
Yeah, I wrote one thing specifically to be my readings piece, and it was very mercenary. I was going to readings and I started to get asked, and I said to myself, okay, I don't think any of my work would be good for a reading, but I need something that I can pull out to get the attention. So I'm going to write something that works that can, and I don't know, Lillian, if you ever read my piece Lefties, but Lefties I wrote to be uh, my reading piece.
I think it works well on the page too.
Well, thank you. I certainly wanted to do double duty, but yeah, you have to like think of the medium, I think. Do you think that speaking of, you write for the phone or the tablet because you know that's where your work is going, Henry? Would if you were only going to print, would you do things differently in how you write your essays?
Would do anything differently. I think
Mm,
I mean, I think when I started it, I was like, I'm just going to pretend that I work for the LRB or the New Yorker or whatever, and they're like, write about whatever you want, and I'm gonna do whatever I would do in that situation. I think I totally,
I
write.
love this. This is such a white pill. It's like you did a lot of reading of really good work, and then you were like, I'm just going to give myself the assignment of writing like that. And then you just put in the time and you like hyperstatized it into happening, you know? That's
Yeah,
so cool. Anyone could do that. Not anyone and turn out like you, but the general steps are generalizable.
I think that one of the things about the Twitter era that really bummed me out, it was like, okay, you have to be funny on Twitter, then you have to like make friends with like editors in magazines and pitch them, and like then that's how you get your work published and read. And I was just like
Yeah.
not, I was always like that is selecting for such a specific personality type. Um,
Yeah.
that I just like, I mean, I never even really gave it a shot because I was like, I don't want to cold email the Paris Review or whatever and have them be like, who are you? And not even have like a hot Twitter account to fall back on. Like when you're starting from zero, it's just very intimidating. And that's why I like, I
Yeah.
mean, why I like Substack, because I feel like, it's so, it's a little mercenary, and obviously there's a lot of dumb shit that gets like a ton of likes, but on some level it's like, okay, I put this out and like people responded and said it was good, and you have like a very like tangible metric of like, am I producing something of value?
Yeah. In my experience, you guys can disagree. I think about half of the moral panics over Substack going to the dogs is just sort of this, like, I don't know what you'd call it, kind of misogyny over like what teenage girls are interested in. And people see that and they go, oh, this is terrible. The other half is like actually like AI slop, which is pretty scary. I don't know. Do you think about AI, Henry, and what it means for your career?
um yeah, I think like, I mean, I think, paradoxically it makes what I'm doing, like, it makes me more jazzed up to write stuff because I think, I value making contact with another mind that's not a robot mind. I think there's a lot of bad stuff about it, and there's obviously a lot of AI slop on Substack. But for me personally, it's just I think there's a I think it like people like me or like you guys will find an audience just because people, paradoxically, it makes like good human output a little more valuable, maybe.
Hmm. What do you think, Lily?
I don't know. I guess that's a very hopeful take, and I like it.
Yeah, Henry's just
But
dropping white pills all over the place here.
yeah,
This is great.
I guess I'm not so sure about the, like if you build it, they will come model of content production, because I feel like that is true for some subset of people who are, I don't know, experience some confluence of, quality, talent, and luck. And then I don't know, I guess I think that there are probably um others who will not experience success, continue to toil in obscurity, even in this sort of gatekeeperless environment. Um,
Yeah, it's certainly not. I think you're inadvertently making this very unfair proclamation about everyone who hasn't made it when you say that the good will eventually rise to the top. Certainly, there's a lot of good that doesn't rise to the top, and I'm not saying that's what you're saying, Henry. It just is
No,
worth
that's
keeping in
definitely
mind.
true.
Yeah.
No, yeah, that's definitely true. I mean, I think part of the reason I've found some success is just being like right place, right time. Being like a John Pistelli reply guy, honestly, is like what got me, you
Tell me
know.
about that. What does that mean?
Oh, I just like, whatever the group of people who are, like publishing novels and are big on Substack and stuff. I just happen to be
Literally
like,
replying to their notes and articles?
yeah, I was like in their comments section. I
Mm.
was a I was a I was a I was a I was around. I was a personality around. It definitely, was a lot of right place, right time stuff. I don't mean to say that, any good work is automatically going to be recognized, but it has a better chance now than it
Yeah.
did 10 years ago, I would say. 10 years ago, it just felt like,
Yeah.
there was a wall. It was 1,000 feet high. There was no climbing it unless you were a very specific type of person.
I'd say that's probably the best thing Substack has done for authors is it has created a discovery engine for medium length work, which didn't exactly exist before. I mean, even Medium or WordPress, they had their social elements, but it's funny. It's like you have Substack notes, which a lot of people despise, but you're scrolling through your feed, you're seeing notes, and interspersed in there are cards advertising random people's essays. If they have the algorithmic traction, even if you don't follow them. And you don't get to see the subtitle, which I think you should, but you do get to see the title and you get to see the art, right? At the very least, that's like an ad for somebody's blog that they don't have to personally pay for, right? And I feel like that's huge for this discovery effect. So
yeah,
I'm
wait,
grateful to Substack.
the no subtitle thing really bothers me,
Yeah, why
because
don't they fix
then
that?
I don't know, because I usually like I don't know. I've been like experimenting with different titles, and Henry, I'm curious to hear how you, I don't know, think about your titles. But I usually put like, I don't know, some like a fun title for a book review in the title, and then the subtitle will be the name of the title of the book. Um, but then if someone's just scrolling through and, sees the title, they don't know that this is, about a book that maybe they've read and want to read
Exactly.
about. So I don't know. How do Henry, you've got some like very creative, imaginative titles for some of your essays. How do you approach that? Do you think about the algorithm and, like clickbait? Do you A/B test?
No, no. No, I try and do the opposite. Sometimes the title comes to me first. Um, I think they're always just, I mean, I've always been this way. Maybe everyone's this way. There are like certain phrases that are very resonant to me, that I almost like feel the need to put into the world sometimes. I would say I definitely like, consciously or not, like try and make it not clickbaity. Actually, I think that's another thing I just stole from the LRB, because they're always like, you have no idea what their essays are about based on their titles, because they just take it from a random phrase.
I think it only possibly works for you because your brand is so high quality. I think that if you were dropping a dud every other essay, it would be a little bit more of an uphill battle to have a completely opaque title. But like, I honestly, most of the time, I don't even consciously ingest your title until after I've read the piece, because I know the piece is going to be the key for me to unlock the meaning of the title. I just see
Yeah.
that little spinning ghost and I fucking tap it, and then there we go,
Yeah, I
Do
think,
you
I don't
think
know,
the
maybe
ghost
that,
is load bearing? Do you think if you switched your profile picture, you'd see like a drop off?
maybe, I don't know. I do love the
Okay,
ghost.
let's keep the ghost. Let's keep it.
Yeah, the ghost is
Um,
staying. No
I want to
headshots.
ask you. You seem to be in something that I would call a gamer chair. Are you a gamer?
Oh my god. No, this is my girlfriend's, or it's my girlfriend's old roommate's chair that he left when he moved out, and it's got,
And
I
was
can't even
was he a gamer?
respawn.
I
It's
see.
very embarrassing, and it's, my cat has jumped all over it and clawed it. I don't know if that shows up on camera, but
No, I think you're okay. You've got the one cat?
I've got, I've actually got, so I had two, and then I moved
Okay.
in with my girlfriend, and she also has a cat, so it's a three,
Merging of
which
households.
is a little intense, but I love him. Wouldn't trade him for the world.
We do. We love our cats. You have a dog, Lillian, right? Do you also have a cat or just a dog?
Just a dog,
I
new puppy.
actually am very surprised that I'm co-hosting with a dog person, but I think in a way it rounds us out. So I think there's probably a lot more cat people on Substack, I would guess.
You
Speaking of
think
cat
so? I don't
people,
know.
um, how do you feel about the state of what gets published in literary magazines over the past, say, 10 years, the kind of short stories that run in The Atlantic, The New Yorker? Do you read these? Do you like them?
Um, I honestly I should read them more. I don't really read them very often.
Mm,
Um, I think it's, I mean, I think everyone listening to this probably knows, like, the state of American letters has not quite been in the place that we might want it to be. I mean, I'm sure there's good stuff in there. I've actually had an interesting thing recently where I've been reading. So I've been reading Harold Bloom's compendium of like children's literature.
mm.
All the stories and all the stories in there are like, oh no, like, a guy has an evil imp in a bottle. You read like Kipling or whatever, and it's like, oh my god, there's like a mongoose and like an evil cobra, and he has to like save his family. Really, really loving, like, I've almost like totally forgotten that a short story is not always about a charged moment in a bourgeois marriage, after
Ha.
which everything is subtly changed. And I
Uh-huh.
feel like I've been reading these, and I feel, this is like so silly to say, but it's like I feel this like sense of tension and suspense. And I'm like, oh my
Yeah.
god, like, what's gonna happen with the evil imp in the bottle? And I don't know. There's just like that mode of short story is so dead now. Like, there's just no, like, there's nothing that is not a Chekhovian, you know, examination of a moment in consciousness. And like, I love a lot of that stuff. I love Chekhov. I love, James Salter and Salinger and all that. But I don't know. I've been thinking, like, they should publish a story about like a pirate. Like,
Like in The Atlantic, like a story
yeah.
about that would be cool. You mean, would this be like a contemporary, like Somali pirate or like a classic Age of Sail pirate or?
I don't know. I just think, like, a story where there's a problem to be solved, and a sort of sense of suspense. I think, I don't know. That's just something that's been on my mind. I mean, I'm not going to be a partisan for pirate stories or whatever, but it is entertaining. Like,
I guess what is your engagement with genre fiction? Because I feel like you're describing, you know,
Like we're doing that over here.
That is true, actually. I thought of that halfway through what I was saying, but I guess you
Uh-huh.
did ask about the Atlantic and all that. Um, I was a huge like science fiction fan when I was like a teenager, and I still really like a lot of it. I think I like the stuff that is maybe closest to domestic fiction, or is sort of a strange twist on like existing, realist literary genres. Like I love Philip K. Dick, but I really love Valis, and I really love A Scanner Darkly, and the stuff that's about like a Mars colony I am not as into. And I love Little Big by John Crowley, which is like a, family saga, like realist novel, but they're like fairies. I love like Susanna Clark. Um, so yeah, I don't know. I think there was a I'm sort of trying to figure out why I'm not as into, like stories about, like your Game of Thrones or Lord of the Rings or whatever. I think maybe like I'm just a little exhausted from like total genre cultural victory, Like there's just so much
Mm.
of it everywhere that's not literature. But I don't know. I do like it. I mean, I'm definitely a respecter, an enjoyer.
Have you read Now Wait for Last Year by Philip K. Dick?
No, I don't think I have.
I think so. It's this sort of zany, like, um, pseudo time travel story where there's a psychedelic drug that's being used as like a weapon of war that may cause time travel. But the core of the story is this actually like really tender um, account of a marriage falling apart. So I don't know if that might be sort of what you're looking for. I think it was a surprisingly moving book for him.
For sure. Yeah, I love him. I think he's terrific. I think I've probably read the like 10 most famous ones, but I would like to get around to the minor ones at some point.
I think that we are about at time here, but we do have a little time to wrap up. I want to ask first, Lillian, if you have any other lines of questioning for the suspect before we let him go. Oh, and we might have you on. There we go.
Yeah, I guess I don't know, a more open-ended question. What are your personal ambitions in the world of letters?
Yeah, I don't know. I started doing this regularly and very intentionally like a year ago, and I think I've just been riding the wave. I would love to do it as much as possible. What I would really like is to so I'm writing a big, long career retrospective overview piece for Metropolitan Review on Janet Malcolm. I don't know if you're familiar with her, uh,
I'm not.
but she was a brilliant, uh, like longtime New Yorker writer, and she, I've been reading like she would basically just do it. She had sort of two halves to her career. One half was like crime based stuff, and the other half was she would just sort of go into an industry and investigate what's going on there. So my favorite book of hers,
Oh, I've always wanted to do that.
yeah, my favorite book of hers is this book called The Silent Woman, which is about Sylvia Plath and Ted Hughes, like uh, the like Plath Hughes industry,
Oh,
and
this is good luck that we get a cat.
yeah, you get a little.
I think that's good luck for the episode.
Um, but like, and I like Sylvia Plath and Ted Hughes fine, like they're whatever, they're not my favorite, but this book is just incredible because she talks to every biographer. She talks to like, the cousin with a grudge. She talks to like the person who wrote like the salacious book about Sylvia Plath. She talks about to like Ted Hughes' sister, who's like, just like fangs bared, like going after anyone who's like trying to talk shit about him. And just that kind of writing, that's just a lot of reading and then like going and talking to people. I would love to get paid American dollars, good American dollars, to be able to do that. So that, I think
Yeah,
by
hire
writing this
Henry
long piece,
Begler. You
I
are
think I'm trying to
obviously,
open up
I
that.
know you said you're not sure. I think you're very obviously one of the most eligible bachelors as far as people on Substack, as I said earlier, who could get snatched up. So if you do, we will be very sad to lose you and lose your regularity with a good hard stare, but we'll also be very happy for you.
But
So
yeah, I'll keep posting.
okay, cool,
I won't forget
cool,
my
cool, cool.
roots. But
And
yeah,
then
no.
I guess a last quick question from me. Um, Say you for whatever reason the genie told you you can never write again. What would you do with your life?
Um, that would be. I mean, I'd probably get a day job, I have a day job. I'd get a normal day job, and I'd just read a lot. I
Would you
mean,
paint or anything like that?
yeah. I mean, I might. I've never had any formal art training. I don't know. There's a lot of stuff I want to do, but there's really nothing that gets the old gets things going quite like writing.
The
It's just
noggin
like the
joggin,
thing I
the
feel.
almonds
Yeah,
activated.
exactly.
Yeah. Well, then I'm glad there are no genies, at least as far as I know. No
Yeah,
gin.
yeah.
Okay, well, very last thing then. Please tell our lovely readers, listeners, if they don't know already, where they can find you on the internet.
Um, yeah, it's just the Substack, a good hard stare.substack.com. I don't really have social media or anything. Besides that, yeah, it's really just that. I have some stuff coming out in other literary publications over the next few months, but I'll make everyone aware of that when it happens. So yeah,
Excellent.
yeah. Thanks for having me on, you guys. This was fun.
Yeah, it's been really fun. I feel honored that we were able to get you. And thanks again, Lillian, as well, for jumping in. I think this is possibly the beginning of a beautiful podcasting friendship. So glad to have you.
Yes, great to talk to you, Henry. I've been an admirer for a while, so
Yeah, for sure. Likewise.
All right. Well, if you would like to sponsor the Futurist Letters show, this is where your sponsor message will go. So go to futuristletters.com. You can go ahead and click advertise with Futurist Letters, and you will have a whole self-serve platform there. And if that seems too intimidating, you can just send us an email. You'll see an email there as well. We're not at the scale where we have no customer support, so we're pretty easy to reach. But we really do want to thank you for listening and watching. We do it for you, and we're really glad that you get enough out of the show to listen and or watch all the way through. So please catch us next week for our very first fall episode. It's going to be myself and my co-host Kenny White. We are going to be talking about the second half of Lee Kuan Yew's massive 600 something page memoir, From Third World to First, the Singapore Story. We're going to be talking a lot about Lee Kuan Yew the man, about Singapore the country, what they did right, what is replicable, and what it means for America today. So even if you haven't read along with us, that's going to be a very fun episode, and we will see you a week from today. So until then, I am Cairo Smith. This has been the Futurist Letters Show, and we will see you later.